me tell you about X2, Survival X2, Survival Shield X2. With everything that's going on in the world, especially with what we're seeing with Ebola, it says make sure you have your supply of Ultra Strength Survival Shield X2. A few drops and you receive a powerful dose of key nascent iodine, and instead of drinking excessive amounts of bad-tasting iodine, it's time to get prepared with Survival Shield X2 from InfoWars Life. Secure yours at InfoWarsLife.com and store it in your preparedness pack or your home cabinet. You know, the key thing with these viruses is really your physical condition and, of course, the condition of your immune system. It's very important to have good palliative care to make sure that you stay hydrated, to make sure that your electrolytes are in balance. That's one of the key things that people get at the hospitals. But really, the indicators as to whether or not people are going to survive or not is highly dependent on their age, on their health care, on their health condition. It's something that you need to take a look at. As we were just talking about, they're trying to offer miracle cures to people. And of course, my concern about miracle cures is whether or not they're going to require it. Are you going to be required to get the vaccine that DARPA and Monsanto and Bill Gates have been working on? Are they going to quarantine you into a FEMA camp if you don't take that? That's my concern about it, is that they're going to let this thing get out of hand. They say they want to mass produce these artificial genetically modified plantibodies, and yet if that strategy is one that's going to work, we already have that strategy there. Instead, what we see is the World Health Organization saying, well, this is a black market, we need to work with governments to shut it down, or we really don't know about it yet. Yeah, they do. Actually, they've had cases going back to the SARS epidemic as well as many others where they have found that antibodies have been very helpful in terms of treating people, but they won't do the simple thing like even set up a blood donor registry and test for the purity of the blood. That's what we can't get them to do. So that raises real questions as to whether or not they want this to get out of control. We've seen this in the way that government officials are acting here. So that's the question I have. Now, as this broke out, Alex Jones filed a report. It's up on Infowars.com. Ebola outbreak is confirmed in the U.S. Why are they bringing Ebola patients into Western countries? And now we see that this is spread now in the United States to a second person. First time that's happened in the United States. Let's go to your calls right now. Tim in Virginia has been holding for a while. Tim, go ahead.
Hey, David. Pleasure to speak with you.
Well, thank you for calling. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
I was thinking a couple of years ago you all did reports on chemtrails and flu vaccinations. I'm wondering if you think that people that are getting vaccinations, primarily healthcare workers going to get vaccinations like flu vaccine, that there's a correlation between that and some sort of aerosol.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, there's clearly people can see that there are precipitants out of these chemtrails. We've had people who worked with the military in terms of doing this as whistleblowers telling us that they're spraying for chemtrails. We can see the effect on the ground. We can see the effect on the temperature. We can see hot spots as people have sprayed the chemtrails. There's an app that tracks that. They also did a documentary in the Paul Revere contest, Look Up. And you can see as kind of a crowdsourcing research. So you can see with that app, as people call in and say that there's a lot of kind of a grid being sprayed of persistent contrails, let's put it that way, in the sky as chemtrails, as they see chemtrails. They can also correlate that to increases in temperature. So we know that at the, depending on what level they put that into the atmosphere, that can raise the temperature. There's questions as to whether or not geoengineers are trying to put that up there to stop, as they believe, global warming, man-made global warming, but it can raise the temperature. So there's a lot of questions about the geoengineering as to whether or not that's something that is working in conjunction with vaccines. I'll tell you that, you know, one of the things that that they have there is aluminum that they see precipitating out, but clearly it should raise everybody's concern that we see so much being done to sell vaccines everywhere. I mean, you can almost get a flu vaccine at a filling station. You know, when you fill up with gas, you can get a shot in the arm. It's gotten practically that ridiculous. We see it being offered everywhere. And I just would personally, I would have, if I wanted to get something like that, if I really believed that it was effective, I think I would want to get it in an environment where I felt it was one where they were taking care, not just kind of a casual retail outlet. But there's a huge profit motive behind all of this. And that's what I was trying to point out with this ZMapp. It's very curious, the timing that they're doing with all these miracle drugs that they're offering us now for Ebola, and telling us that it's not quite there yet. It's going to have to run its course for a while before they can offer those to us. I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned about the hypocrisy that they would go out and offer this drug that essentially operates the same way that a real human blood antibodies would work. Why are we seeing that? I mean, I find that to be extremely strange that they would completely ignore that and just say, yeah, we'll have to look at that someday. Meanwhile, they're rushing to fund with hundreds of millions of dollars the mass production of this genetically modified vaccine that's supposed to create plantibodies. I'm really concerned about that. Let's go to the next call. Activist G in Florida. Go ahead.
Hi, David. How are you?
Doing fine. What do you want to talk about?
Good. One of the questions I wanted to ask was the suit that the nurse was wearing when she contracted the Ebola virus.
Mm-hmm.
What level hazmat suit was that? For people that actually, like, already purchased suits, which suits, are sufficient enough?
I don't have that specificity of information. I know that, and I don't have the article in front of me, I know that the guys who cleaned up the apartment, the hazmat team that cleaned it up, said that they went to the level above the suits that were recommended by the CDC, and they mentioned that it had a respirator. I think what they're telling people is that you don't need a respirator. I think they went to a full coverage hazmat suit, but I can't give you the level of detail. If you Google it, you'll be able to find it. Take a look at the hazmat crew that cleaned up the apartment, and you'll probably get an idea of what level of hazmat suit that they were looking for.
And the other thing is my husband's an emergency room physician, and I asked him about the standard protocol that he's being told to take regarding the Ebola virus. And
you're breaking up a little bit. Are you still there? We lost her. I would like to know what they're telling her about that. But let's go to Habu in Wisconsin. Habu.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the courtesy.
Yes.
Just a couple of quick points. I always shake my head when the United States almost reflexive reaction to something like this is send in the army.
Yes.
As it's been doing all over the world.
Yes.
And your point is spot on about this whole thing about this extended trials with this particular drug, and we don't know where that's going.
Mm-hmm.
But you are as well read as you are and informed. I see that Nigeria has done quite a job with its limited resources, although it's a rich country, relatively speaking. It's been able to contain this if we can, believe the veracity of the accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Therein, I think, lies the problem, meaning if the Western countries, and listen, let me just be very clear, this is not a Western country's responsibility. China is doing well, India is doing well, Russia is doing well. We can draw upon all these nations to send in people and kind of arrest the epidemic right there at ground zero,
Yes.
And Cuba, I know it's not a favorite topic with you guys, and I'm not an apologist for Cuba, but it has sent the most doctors of any nation, and they are sending doctors to the world.
Yes, they tried to send doctors to Katrina, I believe, and of course their help was refused.
Right.
Yes.
And I believe, I expect them to come up with a vaccine, or India, before the U.S. and all its expensive stuff. But anyway, listen, thank you. And, kudos to Alex Jones. He was the first person to talk about it being aerosolized. And yes. Now that is being talked about, too.
Yes. Thank you for calling.
Hi, I'm Shane Steiner. A lot of you have been following my progress using Super Male Vitality. The last 19 weeks has been an incredible experience. I was feeling a little down and lethargic during the holidays, and none of the supplements that I was taking were doing any good. That's when my longtime friend from high school, Alex Jones, introduced me to Super Male Vitality. I was a little skeptical at first. Not only would I have the energy to work out and go to the gym, but it was actually the changes were happening to my body a lot more rapidly. My whole mood, my libido, everything had completely changed. The concentrated organic herbs, they stimulate your natural systems to produce the natural hormones that you need. I just really wanted to bulk up and hit it hard, and I went in for about the first 5 weeks, and was lifting heavy weight and just really hitting it hard, and I gained 20 pounds of muscle immediately. Since that, I've decided I was going to lose some weight and slim down. I just changed up my workout a little bit, and 35 pounds came off. Folks, this is not a joke. This is not a gimmick, it's real. Super Male Vitality, available at InfoWarsLife.com.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're taking your calls on the Ebola outbreak. It's taken another step today. We've had the first person in the United States to contract it within the United States. It is out of control, and as I mentioned earlier, very concerned as to what direction this government is going to take. They say protocols were not followed, yet we know that the long-standing protocols about containing and controlling and isolating have been violated over and over again by our government. We've been told by Obama, as well as by the Texas state official, as well as by the county official that was at that level. So the federal, the state, the county level, they're all telling us zero risk, no chance it's going to come to America, no chance it's going to move beyond this patient, and yet it continues to do so. They're saying that they don't believe that the protocols were followed by the nurse, by the medical staff, yet they insist that they did. We have seen how easy it is to transfer. We read the account from Nancy Wrightball, one of the first two people brought back in the United States for treatment at Emory University, saying she had no idea how she got it. She said, perhaps I touched something that a coworker who that she later found out also had Ebola had touched. It's that easily spread, and yet we see the County Director of Emergency Services for Homeland Security, Judge Jenkins, recklessly walking around in the apartment saying that there's zero chance that he can get it, saying that he drove the family 45 minutes to their new home, saying that he's at a press conference wearing the same shirt in which he went into the apartment, hung out with them, drove them around, modeling the kind of behavior that will get people killed. I can't put a finer point on it than that. The bottom line is that by the time he got there, their response was so late. It had been several days. And so if he doesn't come down with it, that's the reason. It's not that it's safe to walk around in an apartment where somebody has been sick with Ebola. There's fluids all over the place when someone is sick with Ebola. It's not safe to go in there for hours or for days. But in this case, they were so late, so tardy in doing it, that it possibly wasn't a risk to him. But we have to question whether or not these health officials, whether or not the CDC is telling us the truth, not only about that, but about these other protocols. Do they even understand the risks themselves? That's the question. But of course, we've been told, and this was an article that came out in Stars and Stripes. It was someone who works for the Council on Foreign Relations. And we were told that Obamacare was really going to be the solution to Ebola. That's right. When they send thousands of soldiers into the hot zone of Ebola, Obamacare has got their back, just like the VA. And yet we had this article that came out yesterday on InfoWars, 28,476 pages relating to Obamacare in the Federal Register so far. And, of course, there's going to be still more to come. I remember 5 years ago at a political rally that I filmed, they were going to shred the income tax code. Now, nobody at the income tax, at the IRS could tell them exactly how many pages that they would have to shred. They couldn't buy the code. It was going to be thousands of dollars. The best they could get was that it was somewhere between 60 and 65,000 pages. So they got the equivalent number of pages in a phone book and ran them through a shredder. We're already halfway there with Obamacare, and it hasn't even really kicked in. Is it possible for bureaucracy to solve a pandemic, or is that the disease? And of course, we have the contest that is on Infowars.com right now, a $7,500 contest, the Ebola contest, where tyranny is the disease. Go to our website and check that out. That gets the message. It's not going to be solved by tyranny, by bureaucracy. That is one of the major problems that we have to overcome to get that under control, to get our lives under control. Let's go to some of our callers right now. We've got Carrie in Pennsylvania holding. Carrie.
Hello, David.
Hey, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Yeah, just an observation from FEMA Region 3, small town. My wife and I were at Goodwill trying to buy some, flannel shirts for winter. And, there was just 3 or 4 Mexican guys in there, and they were doing the same thing, looking through all the clothes, coughing and sneezing, and, it was just an observation. It was out of the ordinary.
Well, of course, we can't screen anybody for not only disease coming into this country, we can't screen them for a criminal record because we have no control over our borders. And really, this pandemic, I think, is open borders 2.0. I think that's part of what's behind, a large part of what's behind the reckless behavior of Judge Jenkins in Dallas. He's been promoting open borders, undocumented citizens, as I like to call them. I guess we could call Ebola the undocumented virus because we can't track it, and we're not allowed to keep track of the people who are flying on airplanes. We can't quarantine those particular countries. So I guess you could just call that the undocumented pandemic, right?
Right. It's not that I'm paranoid. I'm just wondering. I'm looking and seeing, and we love the show.
Well, thank you for calling. Let's go to Jordan in Virginia. Jordan, it says you're a paramedic.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Doing good.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that the Tecmira vaccination as well as the New Link Genetics vaccination are not typical vaccinations. They actually say that they can remove a section of your DNA. I think the Tecmira site specifically says they can, with a high specificity, remove up to as little as 25 alleles of your genes.
Wow.
And they can go in, basically pluck them out and replace them with something else. So I just wanted to point out that they aren't typical vaccinations and that people should really consider
yes.
the implications.
Yes, that's what concerns me so much about this. As I pointed out, if they want to use the antibody strategy, they have thousands of possible donors out there of real human antibodies that they could use, but instead they're going through this genetically modified route, which of course they can patent with ZMapp. And as you pointed out with Tecmira, I was not aware of that. I know that Brincidofovir is made by a company called Chimerix. That tells you that they're working on the genetic aspect of it, and it's a broad spectrum antiviral drug. It works against a lot of different viruses, but it is, just like these other two, it is based on genetic modification. And that's what we're seeing about this. So it raises a lot of concerns with me as to what they can do to, and what side effects we might possibly have from that. When we were looking at the as I mentioned earlier, the case back in 2003 from the doctor who was treating people with SARS in China, he pointed out at the time that there was a cocktail called ribavirin, I think is the way to pronounce that. It said it repressed viruses, and it had potential side effects that included damage to the heart, liver, and blood, also deformities and unborn children. These pharmaceutical drugs don't come without massive side effects. And so when we look at these miracle drugs, supposedly, that are being offered to us, they're being offered in injectable form. They're being offered as, they're all, as far as I'm aware of, working on genetic modification. They have some kind of they're either created genetically as some kind of a genetically modified organism, a transgenic genetically modified organism, or, as you pointed out, they're messing with our DNA itself. And so that's something that is very much to be concerned about. Thank you for pointing that out. Let's go to Don in Houston. Go ahead, Don.
David, we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have a problem. I am not going to take this vaccination, this so-called miracle vaccination that they're going to come up with, because I can't help but remember Melissa Melton on when you go to the Infowars.com website, and she went to a Bill Gates speech, and Bill Gates stupidly opened it up for questions because she asked a couple real ones, and it was on TV, man. She locked him up, man, turned him into a pretzel. And
well,
poetry in motion to watch her.
He's been all about vaccinations from the get-go, even going to a TED Talk, I believe is where he released the mosquitoes and talked about how they were going to vaccinate people with mosquitoes. And Leanne McAdoo had a very good report about the history of dengue fever and these particular mosquitoes that the Army has used to test people. You know, I think when we look at these troops being put into the hot zone in Liberia, I think we really need to focus on how I believe they're being used as guinea pigs. And beyond that, as one of the callers mentioned, why is it that we're using the military there? Remember, back at Bilderberg 2013, it wasn't just big data, but it was also Africa on the agenda. They've been looking to get into the resources of Africa, find an excuse to get in there, a way to take control. Perhaps they can do it under a humanitarian mask.
Alex Jones here to break down some exciting developments in the area of research concerning supplemental iodine. It's nothing less than phenomenal. I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. And I used some of the mainline iodine supplements and they upset my stomach and I had some issues with it. Until I discovered a product being developed by Dr. Group, who I was already interviewing as an expert on my radio show, and I began taking the product before he actually rolled it out. You now know it as Survival Shield True Nascent Iodine that your body can really absorb. Then, about a year ago, he said, listen, if you think this is powerful, I'm going to come out with rare earth, deep earth crystals that are incredibly powerful that no one else has as a source for their iodine from between 7,000 and 12,000 feet, literally drilled out of the ground. You put it on a hot plate and it turns into the pure gas. No one else has 99.99% pure iodine. And the results that I personally have had have been life-changing. I was over 270 pounds. And with the iodine, exercise, and better diet, I have lost now more than 50 pounds total, and I'm continuing to lose the weight. I have more energy, my libido, all this crap came out of my skin. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. This is innovating. This is trailblazing. And the best part is it helps fund Infowars.com, the radio show, the TV show, the whole media operation promoting true libertarian ideas. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox special at InfoWarsLife.com.